like we've got a pretty good group. Some people will trickle in, but we're going to just go ahead and get started. So, hi everyone. My name is Xochitl Torres. I am the Director of Workforce at BRIC Foundation. This panel is apprenticeship pathways. So, we're going to be talking about, or rather, exploring pathways to apprenticeship, which includes pre-apprenticeship, work-based learning opportunities, and the role that all of these wonderful things play in addressing skills gaps and preparing the next generation of the creative workforce. So, if in the chat you are an entry-level human, you're looking to break into the industry, if you are an educator, this is the exact place that you need to be. So in this conversation, we're going to explore how pre-apprenticeship serves as a pathway towards apprenticeship and alternative careers. We're going to learn about some of the nonprofit organizations that are leveraging the pre-apprenticeship models to meet industry demands. And then we're going to discover the benefits of this approach and how it impacts our apprentices who went through pre-apprenticeship pathways and who are now in apprenticeship programs. So just to get us started, Ajani, Chloe, I'm going to go to you first. If you could share your name, your title, and your organization. Whoever would like to kick us off.
Ajani, you got it.
Sure, yeah. So hello everyone. I'm Ajani Amiri. I'm the director of Venice Arts CCWE, which is our Center for Creative Workforce Equity. And Venice Arts is a pre-apprenticeship partner of many incredible apprenticeship pathways such as BRIC. And we are an organization that's been around for about 30 years now. It's always been a focus on storytelling, visual storytelling, and for the last 5 years, we've been a training program for folks ages 18 to 24 that are trying to break into the creative industry. So happy to be here.
Amazing. And Chloe?
Hi, everybody. I am Chloe. I work for Brick Foundation. I'm the program coordinator. So I work with both pre-apprenticeship and our apprenticeship program. Like Ajani just said, most of our apprenticeship programs are with different nonprofits and studios in California and most recently Washington. And then pre-apprenticeship, we actually just are getting started up in Washington for that as well. And we work with a lot of the high schools that are aligned with us here in California, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Amazing. And then I want to toss it to Aman. You want to go first? I would love it if you could tell us a little bit about who you are, including your role at your current apprenticeship company and the journey that led you to participate in your apprenticeship program.
Sure. So, hey everyone, I'm Aman. I'm born and raised in Southern California. Currently, I'm at Pluto TV, which is a fast streaming service under Paramount. I'm doing content programming and scheduling there. So I get to choose what plays on the channels, which is really fun. I got to this apprenticeship through a variety of organizations such as BRIC, Group Effort Initiative, and Venice Arts. And these organizations are so integral to getting people like us into the industry. I wouldn't be anywhere without it. So super grateful to be here with y'all and speaking today.
Amazing. And Viviana?
Um, Hi, everyone. I'm Viviana. I'm currently a marketing apprentice with Group Effort Initiative. I'm a first gen, born and raised in South Central LA. And I started my journey through the pre-apprenticeship program at Venice Arts, which connected me to BRIC. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I'd love to first start this conversation by talking about pre-apprenticeship programs, since that really is one of the main points of access that people can get into before they access an apprenticeship program or any other industry career. So, Ajani, can I toss it to you maybe to talk about Venice Arts' pre-apprenticeship program? What does eligibility look like, and how you operate some of your programmatics that teach people the skills that they need to prepare them for apprenticeship or those long-term and sustainable careers?
Sure, sure. Well, our pre-apprenticeship program has been going for the last, I believe, 5 years. It was started by our founder, Lynn Warshawski, before her retirement last year. And I've been here for about 3 years, leading the program. And it's been really incredible to watch from the inside. I was pretty aware of Venice Arts even from the outside when I was working with Arts to Work, which is another apprenticeship partner. But what we do inside of Venice Arts is really try to make sure that people who don't traditionally have access to a lot of potential jobs or internships. Um, um, and we try to make sure that our training is kind of a thing that can be accessed by lots of different types of people. So you could be someone that went to film school, someone that didn't go to college at all, might be in community college. Um, and so it's kind of like a place where everyone can kind of come with like a clean slate, right? So you come in, you learn the basics of everything, right? And it's very quick. It's kind of you you might come in on one day and get an assignment, right? And then you're put into groups and you have to pitch, shoot, edit, and screen all in one day. So it's really hands-on. And we have a project-based environment too, where you can focus on a marketing project one week, you can focus on a documentary, you can focus on a narrative project, and then a capstone, which can be any one of the three. Um, and we try to make sure that we're teaching people how to work well with each other, work well under deadlines, be quick on their feet, and to really just not just learn visual storytelling, but to really feel like they're a part of a team, right? And that they can communicate their creative vision and actually um, get pushed in the direction to be able to put it on screen, you know. And we allow people to get access to all types of different equipment too, like Blackmagic, C200s. And we end up placing them into sometimes internships, apprenticeships, that they can really only get access to through Venice Arts. So it's been a really great thing to be able to see so many people over the years um, really matriculate through our program and have real success. Where I've seen people go off to work on big movies, right? Work on TV shows. We have an incredible relationship with NBC Universal, for example. So we're able to place people on to Peacock shows, NBC shows. Um, and it's and a lot of the people that we focus on might be overlooked, right? By folks that are in HR and in Hollywood, where it might just be off of referrals or, based off of the type of school that they went to. But because we have relationships with a lot of employers that know us and have had great experiences with our pre-apprentices, they're able to put a separate pile for Venice Arts folks aside and give them a second look. Um,
You talked about how when people go in, they're learning a lot of those base skills. Can you describe what some of those are? Like when somebody comes in, maybe with no experience, what are the first couple of things that they should expect to learn at Venice Arts?
sure, sure. Well, first we actually start with being able to be a great visual storyteller. So we give everyone a camera for the first week. So we start with photography, right? And then each level that they, matriculate through while they're in the program gives them a little bit uh, more of an ability to finesse with more advanced equipment. So we have different workshops with C200s and Blackmagics, like I said before. And then we also make sure that they are well trained in Adobe Premiere Pro. So by the end of the program, they get certified in it. And then we also make sure that they can learn enough about how actual sets work, so they can go on to be PAs on different TV shows that we connect them to. And yeah.
Amazing. Chloe, I'm going to go to you and kind of cross you two questions. So if you could fold them into the same answer. The first one being what kind of skills are being taught in BRIC's pre-apprenticeship programs and the various partnerships that we have with other partner organizations, with schools. But then on top of that, how are we incorporating these industry skills that need to be taught for jobs?
Yeah, I'm going to answer your second question first, and then I'll go into the first one. So in terms of how we are making sure that like the framework and the industry skills are being met, we do something called curriculum alignment. Um, I'm going to focus on high schools for this, but I want to start by saying that you don't have to be a high school partner to be curriculum aligned with us. We believe that anyone should and can have access to our industry skills framework, regardless of if you're a high school or not. We want to make sure that you have that access. With that being said, we've been in California working with high schools specifically for our pre-apprenticeship program for the last 4 years. Recently in Washington, and hopefully going to expand soon. And so the way that you are registered or aligned with us is we go through a process to make sure that you are aligned with our industry skills framework. And once that happens, you can either register directly with us or the school can register directly with DAS, which is the Department of Apprenticeship Standards. And in order for the reason you have to do that is because in order for a pre-apprenticeship program to exist, you have to have an apprenticeship program. And so because we have an apprenticeship program, most of our pre-apprenticeship programs just go ahead and align with us and register with us to make sure that they're aligned with an apprenticeship program. So that's kind of our process of like curriculum alignment and registration. And then to answer your other question about like the skills and things like that, I'll talk about maybe two. So we have animation, gaming, production management, just to name a couple of our pre-apprenticeship programs. For production management, we actually go into the schools. We most recently did this with one of our Inglewood partners, one of our Hawthorne schools. I can never say that school name right. But we actually go into the school and we have a producer come and kind of teach what does it mean to be a producer. So they learn what that is. They learn what different producers are. So they learn what an executive producer is. They learn what a line producer is. They learn what a producer is. They learn what an associate producer is. And then from there, we walk them through the process of reading a script. And from that script, determining your schedule. So how many days you need, what you're shooting on what day, how much time it's going to take, your load in, your load out, your lunch, and things like that. And then we also teach them how to make a budget based on their script. So they know how much they're paying cast, they know how much they're paying for posts, they know how much they're paying for music, they know how much lunch costs, they know how much visual effects costs, just to name a couple of things. So for production management, that's one thing that we do. For animation, for example, we do like game jams and things like that. We also, I think sometime last year, we took them to one of the museums and they were able to work on like their drawing skills with an artist. And they were there all day. They got to go to the museum and do a tour of the museum and then be taught directly by an artist as well. So that's kind of how we do learn skills and make sure that they're aligned with our program.
Yeah, I think what's really great about the pre-apprenticeship programs is teaching people about the career exposure. Because I think oftentimes when you're growing up and you're like, I want to work in the entertainment industry, you really only know about being a director and a writer, but there are so many different career paths within the industry. And I think that's what's really great about what Venice Arts and BRIC are doing, that they're giving you the hands-on skills to learn about all these other careers and then be able to apply them to those said crafts. So I want to toss it to either Aman or Viviana. Ajani and Chloe talked about the skills that they are teaching in pre-apprenticeship programs, but would love to hear from you in your respective pre-apprenticeship programs. What skills did you actually learn, and what type of support was given to you to make sure that you were successful in your pre-apprenticeship program?
Yeah, Viviana, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, just to like make it clear, I was in the Venice Arts pre-apprenticeship program for the digital storytelling. So through that, I learned like a lot of skills, both like technical and I think a lot of like also personal skills. On the technical side, I learned like how to communicate professionally, how to navigate like workplace environments, and how to also present myself like more confidently. And I think that I also like one thing that I really struggled with was like sharing my work and receiving feedback. I didn't really have, I want to say like the support for that until the pre-apprenticeship, and I think that that really helped me grow. I was also like exposed to different roles and like the industry, and I think that really helped me see where like I could see myself in the future. And after college, I felt like really lost, and I think that that experience just helped guide me and give me direction. I was also like certified for Adobe Premiere, which I was glad that that was something that was offered, because I think that or test is like pretty pricey. So that's something that was a relief for me, and I got to include that on like my digital portfolio. But aside from that, I feel like I also just gained a lot of mentorship, like guidance, um, and yeah, uh, just a lot of skills to be able to add to my set. Yeah.
Yeah, and last year I got to do BRIC's pre-apprenticeship program, and then I was also at Venice Arts' pilot, the digital storytelling program.
Oh, and I had no idea you did this art, so
Yeah,
that's great.
I
Please
was
talk
in
about
their
both.
first year. Yeah.
That's
Um,
amazing.
it was super fun. It happened by like total coincidence. I was not involved with them at all, and I just got referred to it, and it really did change my life because in another universe I'd be like a really bored accountant right now. But I'm working in film, which is my dream. So it's super great. These programs are super important. And I learned a lot of skills, especially from Venice Arts, and having to be thrust into that filmmaking process. That confidence that Viviana talked about is so important. Like I'm really just a weird kid who was alone too much and watched way too many movies, and so they gave me the ability and confidence to express my ideas, to believe in my tastes, and pitch my own original storytelling. And I think our capstone project in that pilot year, we were presenting to a senator and like the mayor of Santa Monica, and like they didn't even tell us till the day of, so we were all scared, but we did it and with such confidence and ease. And they did things like the Adobe program. They got us certified. Lynn got my first externship ever. She was just kind enough to recognize something in me and referred me to UTA's externship program in early COVID. And from there, I just kept going to more events and connecting with more people, and just keep hustling and finding something that works. So these programs are great.
Someone in the chat just put that we should quote you, Amon, for saying if it wasn't for these programs, you would be a board accountant. And I have to agree with that. That's an incredible quote, because it just goes to show again how these pathway programs create different access points for people, give you that experience and exposure. So that's amazing. So thank you for sharing that. Going back to Ajani and Chloe, before we transition into talking more about apprenticeship programs, I want to go back to the pre-apprenticeship. And Ajani, you talked about this a little bit about some of the successes that you've had in your program and how some people have gone on to work on TV shows and film productions. But can you talk about specifically maybe one example of someone who has been a success story, who has gone from your pre-apprenticeship program and created a career out of this?
Absolutely. Um, well, I think some of the biggest successes that I usually see are when, like, I think Viviana spoke to this, but really gaining the confidence and clarity that you need. Like we try to make sure that when they leave, they're leaving with strong portfolios and those professional skills, right? And we have a community of other organizations that really support us, along with BRIC, right? There's another great organization called Get Lit. That was a huge help for this particular story that I'm going to tell. But essentially, when we were done with our pre-apprenticeship, this student got certified. She was great. She was hustling, even, before the end of the program. So she was always thinking about what happens next, what's new for me, right? So what we ended up doing was connecting her with another placement partner that could help her along her journey outside of us, right? So we could both help find what that next long-term job would be. About a few months later, she was able to work at Disney on a Princess Tiana show that ended up getting shelved. And I believe she also went through the BRIC program as well, right? To get this opportunity. So again, it's a community that we have to work with each other to get everyone to that next place. Once that project was shelved, then she ended up getting placed onto Utopia 2, and that lasted for about a year and a half or so. That came out, and now she's at Netflix Animation full time, you know. Um, Another great story that I really love is someone who, like Mon said, ended up at UTA after she was done with our program. She did their externship, and then she went off to work with DreamWorks, as well through us, which is another great partner of ours. Um, and then after that point, she was able to get an offer from Disney, but she also got an offer from UTA at the same time to join the mailroom, right? So she was able to go work there full time. And they love her there. You know, we just caught up with her the other day. She got literally she won the best assistant uh award from UTA this year through the Assistants versus Agents partnership that they have. And she's on her way, you know, she started in the mailroom. She's now on a desk and she's on her way to promotion, you know. So uh, it's really great to see things like that. And that particular student also um was able to get a mentor from Paramount, who was like a senior VP who came back to Venice Arts this year to say like, thank you for what you did for her, and like, how can we support more people like her? You know, so I think the best case studies from Venice Arts are always people that are able to go out and kind of speak the gospel a little bit, right? And say, I am not an outlier. I'm, you know, to the rule. Like there are other people like me that deserve these types of opportunities. It's always great to see um, them kind of reinvest in the pipeline after they get some success later down the line.
Yeah, I want to transition to talking about apprenticeship, but I also want to say everybody has said the same thing. And if the audience takes one thing away from this conversation, it should be build your confidence. Because as creatives, as artists, and I speak for myself as well, I'm very introverted. And I think a lot of us sometimes are. And it's really hard to be able to pitch your project, but also pitch yourself. And so, you know, either accessing some of these programs or doing an improv class or going to other nonprofit events that they have, just being able to build your confidence, learning how to pitch yourself and the things that you like, the things that you want to do, I think that can go a really long way. So switching gears to talking about apprenticeship. So BRIC's Registered Apprenticeship Program is federally and state recognized. It's about 2,000 hours of on-the-job training. So when you apply, we will work to place you with an employer partner who is interested in hiring in any of the occupations that we have that range from storyboard artist, character designer, production management, marketing, special events, etc. And then there's 144 hours of what we like to call free academic training. So if there is a skill that you need to grow in, or the employer feels like, hey, I think so and so should take an accounting class, or I think they should take a business analytics class. Those are all things that BRIC is able to provide to the apprentice to make sure that they're being set up for success. And then we also provide supportive services, which are essentially if somebody needs access to gas mileage reimbursement or transportation assistance, or someone needs access to professional attire or help paying for utility bills. Those are all things that BRIC's apprenticeship program is able to provide. But Chloe, I'd like to toss it to you. If you could talk about what the process is like for outreach and recruitment in selecting candidates for BRIC's apprenticeship program.
Yeah, for sure. So our outreach comes from a lot of our pre-apprenticeship programs. So like I mentioned, we work with different high schools across California. So it comes from places like that, as well as some of our industry partners, to name a few: GRX, Coalition of Festivals, Better Youth, Barset, other organizations that we work with. So, oh, and the community college as well. So like El Camino, East LA, West LA, Santa Monica. We get a lot of apprenticeship applicants from those programs. What was your second question? Oh, you said the process?
Selection.
Okay, cool. So our selection process is an application. So if you go on BRIC's website, um, there's a application that you can apply to, and you're able to select your track. It talks about, different things we look for in your application. So we do applications on a rolling basis. So we do them quarterly. And you can, in your application, you get the opportunity to talk about any experience that you may have, with even if it's transferable skills. So like if you are, a barista at like Starbucks, like you can still talk about what you got out of that experience and how you transfer those skills into maybe being a producer, or if you are an artist and you're interested in animation, maybe you worked on a program with BRIC like at high school, like you get the opportunity to talk about all of that in your application. So since we are talking about applications and reviewing them on a rolling basis, our next deadline is actually coming up on April 12th. So in about 2 weeks. And then the determination actually goes out May 31st.
Amazing. For Aman and Viviana, I'd love to toss it to either of you. If you could talk about how long you've been in your BRIC apprenticeship program and how has the experience been for you? Highlighting what your on-the-job training has looked like, some cool projects that you've gotten to work on, as long as, you don't go against your NDA. What new skills have you learned, whether that be at your on-the-job training or if you've taken any of our academic training offerings? What's your relationship like with your manager? Any of those things.
Yeah, so I think I've been in the program now about 6 months. I'm coming towards the end of my apprenticeship in about 2 weeks, so that's exciting. Fingers crossed I get rehired because job hunting is
Good for
fun.
you.
But it's been super lovely, and BRIC has been such a great support. I've got a mentor at BRIC itself, and we do regular meetings where we get to check in and just chat about the industry too, which is really lovely. Most of my friends are not in this line of business, so it's always fun just to like gab about what's going on and what are you seeing in the trades and stuff like that. And also just to check in and see where our headspace is at, what kind of skills we want to grow in, what's challenging, what's been easy, and yeah, BRIC has been great for that kind of stuff. This position now, it's more data centric than what I've been fortunate enough to work in, but that was also a really, really welcome challenge for me as I'm not math minded, which is why I didn't become a board accountant. So I've been super psyched to get into this role. If y'all don't know, Pluto is like a free streaming service, and it has like live channels and then stuff on demand as well that you can just play, pause, whatever. So I manage about 30 of those channels, and we get to either work with the partners or program them ourselves. And there is a lot of agency and creative work in that as well. So I love it. And then it's combining that with the actual analytics, having to investigate what is the audience into, but also holding some responsibility because just because they like it, we shouldn't play it. Like, for example, they really seem to like Nazi content, and like we don't want to play that kind of stuff. So it's, how do we put our own voice in there and educate them on way more interesting. I mean, that's regarding a history channel that I manage, not just like a drama show.
Okay, the
But
context mattered in that
yeah, the
situation.
context matters. That's like a straight up history channel. So I want to put them
Okay,
on to
great.
more, way better history that should be celebrated. But yeah, that's my spiel.
Are there any new skills that you've learned while being at Paramount?
For sure. Like a lot of softwares that we use specifically, I actually don't know if I'm allowed to say some of those,
You don't
but
have
like a
to.
lot of the data analytics and
Yeah.
and things that we use there. Also, again, like confidence. I think my second day on the job, I was opening our team meeting, like starting it off, speaking to our execs and whatnot, being the first voice in the room to
Yeah.
open, and that was nerve-wracking. And
Mhm.
even the senior leader recognized that, and that felt really good, honestly. It can be always scary to be the youngest person in the room, but just push yourself and believe, and if you don't believe, well, just fake it.
Somebody needs to quote that because that was also really good. Viviana, what about you? How long have you been in your program and how has your experience been? What things have you learned?
Yeah, I've been in the program since I started December 1st. So now it'll be about 4 months that I've been there and I've loved it so far. I've gained a lot of like hands-on experience. And what I really like about the apprenticeship, I've done like an internship before and I feel like with an apprenticeship, like you have a lot more responsibility. Like it feels very different. Like I feel like I'm learning at the same time and that's very valuable, but at the same time I also feel like the amount of responsibility that I have makes me feel like the experience is more real and like it also makes me feel a little bit more confident because I feel like I have more experience that I'm gaining. But yeah, so I've worked on like graphic designing, collecting like participant stories and how can we better like interact with like participants. I've done like social media management and content creation. We had our first like bootcamp event yesterday, which was very nerve-wracking for me, but it was really fun because I got to like apply like all the skills that I've been learning like in real time and take content at the same time. Um, I've taken two courses. So one of them was like a marketing landscape assessment course, and another one was like a social media engagement course. And I think those are all helpful because they've helped me like hone into my skills and, apply that to like hands-on experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say apprenticeship is different from an internship program because you're not just getting coffee for someone, you're not just scheduling meetings or setting up the room. You are an integral part of the team and your voice matters and you have a seat at the table. In terms of supportive services and the wraparound services, case management, could you talk about some of the things that the apprenticeship program has been able to give you and what has case management meant to you?
Yeah. That has been like a blessing. I feel not having I feel like LA it has a good transportation system, but not the best. And so BRIC does provide me with like financial assistance getting to work and from work. And that's a relief because I get to focus on thinking, okay, what am I gonna do at work instead of how am I gonna get to work and all those struggles that come with having to plan and it is a relief, a big one. And I've also like having a case manager, someone that you get to debrief with bi-weekly or however you like decide to schedule that. I think that's also really cool because it feels like a mentor and it's it's guiding you and it doesn't feel like you're just being thrown into like this apprenticeship or being thrown into like the industry and like just not having any support. So it's been really, really helpful.
Aman, do you have anything?
Yeah, it's everything she said. I so agree with. I'm also pretty far from my apprenticeship, so it's a drive and a half. And BRIC has been super, super kind with giving me like gas reimbursements and just any additional support. They're always checking in with me and making sure like, hey, anyone being mean to you? Like, no, of course, nothing like that. But they want to make sure that we're succeeding here and that we're just not just succeeding in this apprenticeship, but that we're actually making valuable connections that are life lasting and that we can hopefully extend our stay or move on to something even greater. Like we're always, just going from donkey to donkey until you can find a horse. So BRIC has been really, really great with that process and the support they offer.
Yeah, when we talk to employers and all of our other partners about apprenticeship programs, I always like to say that when you are hiring an apprentice, it is an entry level human who has a village of people supporting them so that the employer, all they need to focus on is giving the person the tasks, making sure that they're supported, mentoring them. But if the apprentice needs additional support, that's what BRIC is for. BRIC staff is here to provide the wraparound services and make sure that they have everything that they need personally so that they can succeed professionally. So it's a holistic way of viewing the individual. I know you both have talked about this already, but how do you feel like the apprenticeship model is preparing you for a career once your apprenticeship program is over? What is it that you want to do 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And how do you think the skills that you're learning now will benefit you in the long run?
Um, Programs like these, they're really good at giving you soft skills and hard skills. And ever since I started off at Venice Arts to when I've gone to networking events through GEI and now with this program with BRIC, I've gotten to pick up a lot of different skills and a lot of them are transferable too. Like especially I come from the corporate track and a lot of the skills you're doing are pretty much the same thing. Can you use Microsoft Office? Can you use the Google Workspace? And any program or software that's very specific to the job, you're going to get the training for it from your boss or your leads or whatnot. So these programs have been great for just instilling you with the basic knowledge to carry over from job to job and also that confidence that we've mentioned so many times.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I keep saying this, but I really feel like it's helping me like not just learn, but like I'm actually doing work. Like that's something that I feel like it's very important because it makes you feel like you're part of the team. You learn how a team is operating, you know what's expected in like the work environment. And it makes pursuing like a career in the entertainment industry or just in general, like I feel for me like um it makes it known and it feels like there are places for people like me in the industry, and I think that that's something really important. Also like the case managements, like I'm slowly figuring out what I want to do in the future. I don't know 100% yet, but being able to talk about like, oh, I liked doing this while I was at work and I didn't like this, you know, talking to someone about it and then being able to give you feedback as well. Like I think I was talking to Sochi about like I kind of know I think I want to do this, and she was like, "Oh, that's like event marketing." And that's something that I didn't know the name of. So it makes it more, it's very impactful, and I think it helps me learn and figure out more of what I want to do. So yeah.
Yeah, and even if it's not, BRIC's apprenticeship program or another apprenticeship program where you do have case management, that's where mentorship comes into play. And I think that that's a really important part of excelling in your career. And it doesn't need to be this formal mentorship of, I choose you to be my mentor and I want to meet with you once a month where we talk about my career trajectory, because sometimes people don't have time to do that. But just finding someone who has some experience in the industry and being able to talk to them, ask them for advice, ask questions, and bounce ideas off of each other is really beneficial in anybody's career. Ajani, Chloe, so Viviana and Amon talked about some of those skills that they're learning in their job, but can you give examples of some transferable skills that people could either learn in these types of programs or things that they could learn at any point in their career that could help them out working in entertainment?
Yeah, I think the skill that I hear from alumni that have helped them the most is learning how to pivot, and I think the industry right now is changing a lot. It's very fast paced. It's not always a straight line, you know. Well, what I think people leave, with the confidence that they leave Venice Arts with is being able to feel like, if I'm under pressure, I can pivot. I can learn how to maneuver in a new way, and really try to find my success wherever I can. Um, and I think another piece is probably, we spend a lot of time on soft skills, like we really try to make sure that people know what it's like to work um, in a real workplace, right? To have a strong resume, to know how to interview, to know how to nail the first interview, which is usually virtual, how to do the in-person one, how to show up, how to be on time, how to really think about how you're presenting yourself as well. And then, we also teach people how to really, find mentors and cold calling. I think for me, like, that's something that's been huge for me personally in my career is like really following up and like knowing how to, not annoy a mentor, but also still be present, and to um build that community for yourself, you know. And that can be in any industry, really. It's really about how to show up and show up authentically as yourself, and then how to continue your career in a way where you can get to that next level without becoming stagnant.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I'll also say it's their willingness to like learn and grow. So, like for example, one thing that BRIC really encourages our apprentices to do is an improv course. And I actually got to do the last one that we did with them. But it's we do it so that they're not afraid to like talk it, to CEOs or get nervous and like help their public speaking. But that's just one example of ways that they're willing to learn different things. We had a couple of them like they're really interested in taking different courses. So like we have one of our apprentices currently who enrolled in a course, but she knows that BRIC offers digital badges, and so she went on the website and saw like three, and she was like, "Can I get all of these?" And I was like, "Yeah, like you're a BRIC apprentice, you can take whatever you want to take." So she's taking like storytelling right now. So just that, I mean, Ajani touched on it a little bit by saying like, um, your willingness to like grow and just understand different things and communicate with people. But I would say that that's a really big one. But they're also not afraid to ask questions. So we have an apprentice that when we did Lightbox Expo, they sent us a list of people that they wanted to meet with, and we connected them with nearly all of the people on that list. I had an apprentice recently get a job offer and then got an email that was like for an interview, and she was like, "Well, do I take the interview? Like I have this job offer." So it's just like your willingness to learn and to ask questions and really be inquisitive about this industry, and I think that's a really important skill to have as an employee, but also as a life skill as well.
Yeah. And once again, reiterating, just having someone to talk to and ask for advice and feedback can really go a long way. I want to make sure we have enough time for Q&A, so I'm going to cut some of my questions short. But this one is for Ajani and Chloe. In an ideal world, how do you see pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship evolving in the sector? Whether that mean adding more skills training, more of an expansion, what does that look like for you?
Sure. I think, in an ideal world, I'd like to see pre-apprenticeships um, and apprenticeships as well become more normalized, kind of more widely supported in the creative economy. Um, so I guess that would mean more employers participating, there being more paid opportunities, stronger wraparound. But, I think in terms of expansion from where we are now, I think, speaking for Venice Arts, we're always looking to continue conversations with our employer partners to see where are the jobs? What are you actively hiring for? Especially because we're in a kind of a weird place in the industry. How do we make sure that we ourselves, just like how we're teaching them how to pivot, how do we pivot our training to be in addition to the digital storytelling pre-apprenticeship, but also, we're developing an unscripted media pre-apprenticeship as well. And that's been through many conversations with some of our biggest partners like NBC, Paramount, and folks that say, this is what we're hiring for. Can you do a level two on top of the digital pre-apprenticeship where they're specifically getting into sports broadcasting, into live concert media, into more kind of like live event stuff. We've been kind of doing a trial run of this by working with the World Cup, the NBA Foundation, um, and Telemundo, and a few other partners of ours, where we take out different content crews, um, and we bring a mentor with them as well to kind of like help direct and guide if they, don't know exactly what to do. But that's been super helpful for us because it's not a full apprenticeship, but it's a real gig. It's project-based learning outside of the classroom in the real world with real clients, where it does go on the NBC affiliated companies' websites and Instagrams, and you're having to learn what it's like to get real notes, right, from executives on content that you're producing, right? Because I think, so as we're expanding the type of experiences that we bring to our folks, we're shifting from not just placement, but how do we continue the learning outside of the classroom in these new mediums that are popping up.
Well, and I think what also makes this so impactful is you are getting active feedback from employers of what they want to see and what they're going to be hiring for. And so you're making sure that your level 2 of your training program is actually teaching the skills that the employers want to see.
Mm-hmm.
Chloe, would love to toss it to you.
Yeah, I have a long answer because there's really three parts to it. But my first, I guess, part of that, in alignment with Ajani, would be expansion. And so what expansion looks like to me is yes, that, but also expansion to different states. So if I give you an example, I'm originally from Tennessee, and there is no entertainment apprenticeship in Tennessee, and they actually within the last year just really started doing apprenticeship as a whole. And so I was very blessed to even get into entertainment because I started working in film marketing in high school with someone that I already knew. And so, funny enough, that person is actually I invited to the Ask Me Anything session today. Her name is Michelle Duffy. And when she sent her bio, I was reading it and I was like, wow, I got to work on this movie with her. I worked on this movie with her. I worked on this movie with her. So I was very, very blessed in the sense that I met someone that kind of took me along and I was able to air quote, do my own, create my own like pre-apprenticeship program by working with them,
It
consistently.
was like an unofficial pre-apprenticeship
Yeah,
program for
yeah.
you where you got
What you
the
said?
exposure.
Yeah, I got this one. So like, it wasn't like I was, learning curriculum, but I was learning, what it meant to like work in entertainment. I was going to events, like I was planning events. I was doing social media, like when Twitter first started, like doing social media
Whoa.
for them on Twitter. So I mean, that was a really cool experience. And through that experience, I worked on them with a project for Devon Franklin. So that led me to an internship with Devon Franklin. But I don't think if it were not for these people that I was able to make connections with, I may not have ever gotten into entertainment because like it just didn't exist. Like, for me coming from Tennessee. And so my second piece to this is transferable skills. So when I was interning with Devon, I got to do a lot of different things and it didn't, connect with me until like after I left and actually started like working in entertainment, how much I was actually able to do on that internship. So like, for example, I mean, I'm sure all, interns do coverage or like, assistants do coverage if you're working in production. So that was my first time doing script coverage. But when I became a development exec, I knew how to read a script and figure out like what we're looking for because of that internship that I had with Devon. He was like featured for like a McDonald's campaign that year, Black and Positively Golden. So we were on set, for that with him. So that was my first time being on set. So when I produced my first movie, I knew what it was like to be on set. And funny enough, I was actually doing BTS when we were on set, which I have no interest in doing BTS, but it was a skill that I was able to learn through that, internship. And then I also got to do like casting for Flamin' Hot, which came out like maybe a year or two ago. So just me, as an intern, sending them cast lists. Like I have to do so many things that even if I'm not doing them now or like didn't have an interest in doing them, I understood it. So like when I started making films and things like that, like I had that experience. Like it wasn't new to me. Um, and then my third piece is mentorship. So we've talked a little bit about it. But right now, mentorship is not necessarily a requirement. I think for me, I would make that a requirement because like even throughout my internship with Devon, like, working with his company, um, they knew I wanted to be a producer. So a lot of the tasks they were giving me were in alignment with that. But they would also say we were in person on the Fox studio a lot. So they would, say, oh, just go into Bond's office and like ask them like, what can you do like to help him? Like he's the producer, like what can you do? And I would never do it. Because like I'm an intern, like this is his company, like he's doing what I want to do. And so it can be very daunting to walk up to like a CEO of a company and say, like, you are doing what I want to do. Like, can I help you do this? Can I help you do that? And I knew him coming into the internship, and he's super nice. Like the person he is online is the person he is in real life. And I was still, kind of scared to like talk to him in that way. But I think if I had a mentor or somebody else there, I would have been able to, kind of do that a little differently. But yeah, I mean, looking back like on my experience, I think that would be the three things that I would say if I wanted to expand apprenticeship, I would do that.
Well, I feel like there's a lot of things there that I want to highlight and touch on. And I also hope you have this written down somewhere because I want to pick up this conversation again afterwards. But the first thing is coverage. Oh my God. Coverage is so important to be able to know how to do. And I know it might be hard for you to get your hands on a script, but even just maybe this is a bad example, but even just when you watch a movie, when you watch a TV show, just being able for you yourself as practice to be able to write a summary and a log line of like, this is what this show was about, this is what this movie was, and here is a brief summary, and here are my opinions of how it would perform in the marketplace. Those are just easy things that you could do at home for yourself as practice. And Chloe just said there's a ton of scripts online for free now. I had no idea. That is just a great way for you to be able to practice doing that for script coverage, but it also helps because it's a transferable skill. It also helps when you read emails, being able to distill a lot of that information down and communicate that with your executives and with leadership. Chloe, what other thing did you mention that I wanted to talk about? Oh, the mentorship component and talking to people who are in positions that like, hey, you got a really cool job, and I want to be able to do that at some point. At the in-person summit on Friday, somebody in our Mentimeter put closed mouths don't get fed, which is something my parents always told me growing up, that you have to speak up for yourself. And if there's something that you want to do in your career, tell people about it, because the universe works in mysterious ways if that is what you believe. And if you speak something out into the universe, if you tell somebody, hey, I want to do XYZ, or this is the career trajectory that I want for myself, people will help you. Most people are genuinely very nice and want to see you succeed and will be an unofficial mentor to you to help you get there. So Chloe, thank you so much for sharing that incredible insight. And I look forward to picking that conversation up again afterward. Really quickly, before we go to Q&A, for everybody on the panel, do you have any parting words of advice, words of wisdom for anyone interested in exploring an apprenticeship program, any other type of training program, or any other advice on accessing the entertainment industry?
I think I'll start. And I just want to say like the importance of relationship building, and just keeping in contact with people. So like I mentioned, like I got that internship with Devon because of a relationship that I had with him from working with D3 and Michelle Duffy. But also even, with D3 and Michelle, like I mentioned, Michelle is going to be on the Ask Me Anything panel today. But that's like I kept in contact and like kept a relationship with her. And when we talked, she actually said when she read her email, she was like, "Who is this emailing me, like asking me to do a panel? Like I knew you when you were a baby." So it was like a real full circle moment for me with that. But you never know like what you get out of a relationship. And I'm not saying like make relationships just because you want an opportunity, but like that's really really important. And even as I've started doing my own projects, like from people that I've met on set, or like even myself and Ajani, like we were originally working on a project together when I was a development exec, and like I talk to this dude all the time now. So it's just like I just took a movie to him like a few weeks ago actually. So it's really important to like communicate and talk to people and keep in touch, because you never know like what the future holds. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I mean to piggyback off of that, like I think it's really really like important to be in community with the people around you and like to network across, like I feel like a lot of the time, people speak about networking up, but for me, especially as of, recently, like when you keep up with people, for a long period of time and they really do become your friends, it's less about how do I, maneuver in a way to help my career, but it's just like I just really like this person. I like their mind, I'm trying to get advice from them just as much as I'm trying to get advice from mentors that are much more far along in their career. And as the years go by, I have a lot of friends that I've known since they were in the mailroom or, honestly since college, but, and that now they're people that can greenlight projects, but there's a real relationship there, Um, so yeah, and then also I would say if you're trying to find mentors and you're just interested in like building uh a group of folks that can and maybe eventually help you, get into the industry or help produce your projects, I would just start with like, cold emailing people, using things like IMDb Pro. That's what I did a lot in college because I would spend pretty much most of my weekends just kind of like finding people that I really loved their work, and a lot of people don't get reached out to all the time, especially if they're like, cinematographers or like writers and stuff. Like people don't go out of their way to, email them. So even if their emails aren't up there, you can email their agents or their publicists. And people have always, representatives, reps have always forwarded my emails, especially if I'm emailing from like a college email address. That's some great advice I got from Charles King at Macro. Back when I was in college, it was like just use your Howard email all these people, and it worked. And people actually responded. The crazy context I was able to make through that, and then eventually would say, okay, well, a 15-minute or less conversation would turn into like 2 hours sometimes, and then they'd be like, all right, well, send me what you have, and then that would become a real mentor. And then some of those people went off to produce my projects, and then and one of those was the project I had with Chloe. So it's you never really know where one phone call can go and where one relationship can take you.
Yeah. People love to talk about themselves, even if they don't come off that way. When you start asking questions about, like, what was your career trajectory? Oh, Chloe, what was your career trajectory like? How did you get to where you are? What do you do at work? People love to talk about that. So if you reach out to people and say, hey, I'm so and so, and I'd love to get your take on this, or would like some career advice, people most of the time are very willing to do that. Amon, Viviana, do you have any advice for getting into the industry?
Sure. Yeah, as y'all have mentioned, advocating for yourself is so important. I come from a pretty submissive culture and I also don't like talking about myself, so that's always been something I struggle with. But I mean, the first time I visited a set was just because I used to work at a desserts shop and one of the customers asked me what I wanted to do afterwards, and I said, the dream would be movies, but that's probably never happening. And what do you know, his wife worked at Disney as an exec. She took me to KTLA. She took me
Oh
to
my
some
God.
Disney sitcom that was filming, and I got to walk around, meet the line producers, meet a gaffer. I didn't even know what a gaffer was. So it's, if you can just express what you want to do, believe in it, even if you don't see the path, it's there. I still don't know what I'll be doing in 5 years, but I know it'll be something. It's going to be exciting. Hang on to your network because your competition today is your coworkers tomorrow. Be kind to everyone, even if they're not so kind to you, it's okay. Everyone has bad days. I had a friend who's one of my peers reach out because they knew I did some development work over last year. They reached out to me to read a script that they're hoping to get financed now, and um, just make yourself available to people and keep hustling, keep hustling. It never stops. This is a difficult industry, so you gotta be on go and use your peers around you. They want to support you. People want to help. They want to talk about themselves. They don't want to see you fail.
I love what you said that you told that person when you were working that you wanted to work in movies. And it goes back to closed mouths don't get fed. Because if you had just said, like, oh, I don't really know, maybe nothing would have happened. But the fact that you said that, and then they were like, well, actually, let me help you out. The universe works in mysterious ways. Okay, Viviana, go.
Yeah, great advice from everybody. I think my piece of advice would be don't self-sabotage. I can be like really like guilty of self-sabotaging, and if you don't like step into these like places and like these opportunities, someone else is gonna do that. And I think that's something I always have to like tell myself because I networking is a little tough for me. It's very intimidating. Um, but I just have to remind myself and you have to remind yourself that you belong in these places. These resources are here and they're meant to help you. So yeah, take advantage of that and yeah.
There's this really great book that nobody asked me for my advice, but I'm going to share it anyway. I wish I could remember what it's called. One second, everybody. Oh my goodness. So I think the author is Kelly Edwards, and he is a very famous executive. She works at HBO. Here it is. And she led HBO's, at the time, they don't exist anymore, but she led the HBO Directors and Writers program. But she wrote this really great book called The Executive Chair. And I highly recommend if you're able to read it. It's a great book and it talks about skills that you need to be able to network because it can be really scary. So for those of you who are intimidated by those kinds of things and you need some advice, highly recommend reading this book because it's great. Okay, amazing. So now we're just going to go into the Q&A because we got a couple questions. So I'm going to go to the first one is apprenticeship only for high schoolers and apprenticeship for those after high school. So I can help answer that question, but Ajani, Chloe, please feel free to jump in if you have anything. So pre-apprenticeship depends on the organization that is offering a pre-apprenticeship program. It can be high school, but it could also be community college. It could be nonprofit organizations. You could be in your 30s, 40s, and if there is a pre-apprenticeship program that is eligible to people of that age, you can join those things. Ajani, Chloe, what are the eligibility requirements for pre-apprenticeship programs at Venice Arts and BRIC?
Yeah, well, we primarily focus on folks that are marginalized. So we are really about finding the most equitable way to open up access in the industry for folks that are primarily low income. We work with folks in the Los Angeles County area. Some of our folks are currently or formerly foster youth. Might have come from a homeless background or currently in a shelter. Some might just not be in a great financial position themselves personally, that they live alone, or their background might not be as financially um uh they just might be low income, due to their family circumstances. So we try to open it up to as many folks as possible, and we're able to get to people through our local AJCCs, and also just other community organizations that work with the same type of youth. So, when they're done with maybe a high school pre-apprenticeship level or different programs that have carried them from youth into young adulthood, then we can kind of take the baton from there.
Yeah, and similarly with us, we well to put full like eligibility for our apprenticeship is for California. It's 18 to 24. And you have to be a California resident. And because we recently expanded to Washington, you can also be a Washington resident for Washington apprenticeships. But similarly to what Ajani was mentioning, we work with underrepresented voices, which is why BRIC was actually founded. And so we like to try to get a lot of apprentices that are either women, we do like low income, people of color, LGBTQ, and veterans, and more recently, justice impacted, which is one of my personal favorites.
Awesome. Then we have our apprenticeships only for spring and fall. Are there summer ones? So apprenticeship, at least for BRIC Foundation, is employer-led. So once we have an employer who is interested and open to hiring, then we will place them, and it can be year-round. It can be a part-time role. It can be a full-time role. Chloe, did you want to add to that?
No, I was just marking it so that
Sorry, I just saw that you said you were going to answer that question, so I wasn't sure. There is a question about, can you list the name of that apprenticeship? Not entirely sure what that question is referring to, but if I can guess based on the timestamp of when that question was asked, I think Ajani was referring to Arts to Work. Ajani, do you have any more information about Arts to Work's apprenticeship program?
Absolutely. So, our Arts to Work was the first federally registered apprenticeship program. It's nationwide, all the way to like Baltimore with White Angle Media. And they also just support pre-apprenticeships across the country, including Venice Arts, is how we became a registered pre-apprenticeship program. This is before I was officially here with Venice Arts. Um, so, and Arts to Work also sponsors organizations to be able to develop their own training programs. WLCAC and Watts is also a pre-apprenticeship that was developed in partnership with Arts to Work. And if you just want to be an apprentice, similar to applying to become a BRIC apprentice, you can look up Arts to Work Media, and there is an application that you can fill out there as well.
Amazing. And then in alignment with that, somebody asked, is there a place that lists apprenticeship programs open to those past college? So as mentioned, at least for BRIC's apprenticeship program, it is 18 to 24 or a veteran or justice impacted. There are other apprenticeship programs though. So I'm going to put this link in the chat. This is the Entertainment Equity Alliance website that houses a ton of nonprofit organizations, registered apprenticeship programs, and labor union training programs. And I think we also have studio programs in there as well. But if you go onto that link that I shared, there is a list of all the other apprenticeship programs that exist in the creative sector. So there's BRIC, which focuses in media, entertainment, and tech, but then we also have EVEN, which is events and live entertainment. We have the Handy Foundation, which is production and post-production. As Ajani mentioned, there's Arts to Work. There is a new apprenticeship program called Musicians at Play, also known as MAP, which focuses on orchestra. So that is also listed on the website. Somebody asks, is there an age limit to apprenticeships? I'm over 30 and would love an opportunity to hone my skills. So it really just depends on the eligibility for each apprenticeship program. I know that BRIC and EVEN do have age requirements of that 18 to 24 or veteran or justice impacted. I will say the Handy Foundation is open to any age. So if you are interested in production or post-production, I highly recommend you take a look at that one.
And there's also another one called New Earth in Culver City. They're recent. They're on their second cohort actually. And it's currently open to anyone who was born like 1995 and up, you know. So that is 31, I believe. So if you're interested in audio engineering or interested in PAing for in the audio department on TV shows and movies, that's what they're preparing people for. So
I did not know this. If you could share more information afterward, that way we can get them added on the website.
absolutely.
Great. Somebody asked if I applied, assuming to BRIC Foundation's apprenticeship program on December 2025, can I still expect to hear a decision by April's deadline, or should I update my profile? Chloe, do you have more information on that?
Yeah, I'll answer that one. I may know who this person is only because I emailed someone that asked me that. But your application stays the same, so it will just be reviewed with this next wave since we review them on a rolling basis. If you apply at the last deadline, it's possible like it was after the cutoff, but your application is still there. So if you do have any job experience that you want to add, or like if you have updated your portfolio review, you can go and update it, and we'll use your most current application. But if you leave it completely the same, that's also okay. We'll still review that for the next deadline.
Amazing. And then somebody asked, can I get feedback on my BRIC apprenticeship application if I don't get accepted? Chloe, do we still offer a portfolio or no?
Yes, we do still do portfolio reviews, but we don't give feedback on specific applications, just because of the amount that we get each wave. Like we would never be able to do anything else if we did that. But we do still have portfolio reviews, which we are highlighting at some point on one of these panels today. And we're gonna rework them to make sure that we advertise them a little bit more so people are more informed about them.
Amazing, thank you. I'm having a little trouble understanding what this question is asking, but it is saying, I'm trying to get into animation. What type of questions or format do you recommend? Minutes about industry. I don't want to annoy the mentor. Should I send them a gift card? Thank you. Meet them where? Any insight helpful? So maybe this question is more about mentorship and how not to annoy somebody and what can you do for their time. I would advise not to send a gift card. I think people respond really well to, this is very old timey, but people respond really well to handwritten note cards rather than an email. And so if you are able to do that, maybe not getting their home address, but getting their office address, and being able to mail them something physical, just thanking them for their time is always really nice. I don't know if anybody else on this panel has any recommendations.
Yeah, I was just gonna agree with that too, Sochi. Like I know when I did my internship with Devon, like I gave him a handwritten card on my last day, and I think I was the only intern to do that.
Yeah.
But he was really excited to get it. But you know,
Yeah.
it's like I keep saying, but like the opportunity I have with Michelle and with Devon, like I may not be in entertainment without them. So like just
Yes.
emails, handwritten notes, like all of that, like I think are really important. So yeah.
If I can add really
Yeah.
quick, even better than a gift card, if there's something y'all have talked about, like get them just a more personalized present. I remember one of my greatest mentors who I just chatted with this morning, like really loved Jay Dillis. So I got her a record on my last day and like donuts for the rest of the office. If I wasn't sure how to talk to some of those other people, but like the people who I've built relationships with, I like to leave them with a little present before I go. So they have something physical to remember me by.
Yeah, to that point, that's so funny. When I was interning, at one point, I had a supervisor and a mentor who also really liked records. At this point, I can't even remember what kind of music it was, but I got a record, and he was like, "Nobody has ever given me such a thoughtful gift before," and that just made me feel really good because it also just shows how you listen to them and you understood what their interests are and their passions. One of the other things that I do. So I'm also a photographer. I love film photography, and so one of the things that I do is if I have what I presume as nicer photos that I've taken in the past, that's how I do some of my thank you cards. I will print out my prints, and then on the back I will write, and then people will be like, "Oh, this is a beautiful photograph. Who took it?" And I was like, "I did. That is my photo business." And so if you are an artist and you want to give people pieces of your work, I think that could also be a really great way for you to highlight your skills and the things that you do. Does anybody else have any input on the mentorship component, how to reach out to people?
I think I spoke a little bit to this already, but in terms of like, not annoying them, I think like you don't have to think too hard about that. I think like just try to um stay in their orbit without it becoming too much of an ask, like that is too much for them. So don't call them every week or anything like that and keep them on the phone for like an hour plus. But, just pace it out and just make sure that they don't forget you. And just, if the coffee in person or even a phone call is, whatever works best for them to reach them that that keeps the connection going and the communication open, do that. But just, just it's just make sure that you're keeping your empathy up and you are responding to what they're giving you.
Yes, being respectful of people's time, maybe just 10, 15 minutes, it goes a long way. 100% agree with that. What I'm going to make this the last question because I know we're almost at time, but can you talk more about the digital badges? Chloe, would you feel comfortable taking that one while I put the link in the chat?
I would, and also I just want to flag that the panel after this at 1 o'clock actually goes into digital badging and their rubrics.
Amazing.
So if you want to learn more, you can join that one and check it out. But BRIC offers digital badges, and so what that means is they are industry reviewed. So they're reviewed by people that are in the industry. So depending on what badge that is, whether it's animation, whether it's production management, whether it's storytelling, someone is gonna review it. And then there's a rubric, so you're able to actually look at the rubric before you even submit to know that what you're being graded on. And it's a self-paced like online course that BRIC offers. And we offer a couple of different ones, as I mentioned, like animation, gaming, storytelling, production management, scheduling, budgeting. But it's just a way to build your skill, and then you get a certificate at the end, and you're able to use that like on your portfolio, your resume, LinkedIn, or whatever. And it says, whichever badge you did, I submitted to this, got a review by someone in the industry, industry certified, and I got a certificate for it. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you all so, so much for sharing your insight and your wisdom, advice. Appreciate you all, and thank you all for joining us and for hearing our lovely panelists. So with that, like Chloe said, hope you all join the digital badge session at 1 p.m. I did just put the link in the chat for you all, and I hope to see you for the rest of the day. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, y'all.